Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for the 22nd of August. All right, as we come into Wednesday's trading now, exactly what we're sort of looking at on Monday. There was a chance, especially with all the geopolitical situations that Trump's, whipped up, a chance for the dollar to sort of just drift off. And there's these trend lines, well, the euro has already sort of broken higher, but the main trend lines above these levels were potential targets. So I've got to say, I'm somewhat surprised Aussie, Kiwi, Euro and Sterling have really got to the second trend lines. I would have thought the first ones would have been it. But this is what happens with geopolitical events. You don't know when they start and you don't know when they finish. So there's no strength, there's no strength coming out of these currencies. Now, we just had some Kiwi retail sales figures. The volume number, right, this is different to all other sort of retail sales figures. The volume was up. But the actual retail sales was on par. So Kiwi, a little bit of a shot in the arm there just about an hour ago, but nothing to really write home about. Euro, there's been no strong anything out of Europe. There's been nothing that I've seen strong out of the UK as well. This is all US dollar weakness. Then you come back and look at the beast, right, dollar yen. It's just trading sideways like nothing's going on. That tells you a bit more of the story around, what. Do traders know what's going on or not? You can generally tell with dollar yen. It's either higher or lower, and if it's trading sideways, they're sitting on their hands. Now, dollar CAD, a little bit unfortunate yesterday with the wholesale trade figures. We're expecting, we're hoping for strong numbers, and it pushes down through this trend line here on the downside, but we didn't get the strong numbers we were looking for, and unfortunately, it just sort of sat where it was. So just coming back and having a look at those bits of data, and this is what you should be doing each day, just coming back and piecing together any movements on the currencies. Okay, we've got the wholesale trade figures. Weak milk auctions, as I mentioned yesterday, there's no sort of rumblings in that market, so no changes to the Kiwi there. As you can see here, this is a volume number, not actual retail sales per se. Quarter on quarter, it was slightly higher, but nothing to write home about. And this sets us up for what we're going to do today is actually try and find out where is the best trading opportunity here. Now, one thing that I wanted to show you, this current move, right, and I'll just come back and show you the news in a minute. Let me just show you what's happening here on the dailies. These moves have really corrected a lot of the pressure that came on the US dollar, driving these currencies down from, the increase in tension with China and the US trade tariff situation. Now, that has, as you can see clearly, the last couple of days, there's been no data. The trend lines were a fair way away, and these currencies have just slowly motored back. But what we've come back to is we're sitting on some major levels. Now, if I just change all these charts, come over to my tech chart. Now, this is where I'm sort of gauging a lot of direction. And what I'm looking for is, I've got all these charts on the dailies, right? These are daily trend lines. We're coming back to major trend line resistance on a lot of these majors. Kiwi right on it. Aussie's got a little bit of a way to go. Euro right back there as well. And same with sterling. Like, this is critical timing. Dollar yen, if anything, has slowly drifted down through it. That could be our key. Like, the dollar is drifting a little bit lower. Dollar CAD trading sideways at the moment, but once again, another long-term chart going back to the start of the year. Most of these trend lines go back at least 6 months, right? So they're pretty solid, and it's pretty important. So right now we're at a critical juncture with a lot of the major currency pairs. It's a little bit unfortunate we don't have really robust US numbers or something out of the Fed or a central bank, because that could really sort of kick things off. So what we're looking for is, if dollar yen continues to weaken, well, then we may see these currencies all shoot to the top side and take out stops. There will be stop losses above these levels. Now, overriding everything, the US fundamentals are the strongest, right? This is all geopolitical crap that has forced this current move. And you can probably argue that a lot of the move down on these currencies was also geopolitical as well. So it's just a bit of a correction of what we've seen at the moment. But what I'm trying to highlight is, when you come back to look at the, say, your daily analysis, right? And I was just updating all the major currency pairs in the MyFX Trading Hub. Just having a look here, we've got a number of these currencies like the US dollar, the Kiwi, dollar CAD, and a few of these other currencies here are all sort of trading sideways. That means the fundamentals don't match up with the technicals, but the technical side of things is about to start to kick in, and we can potentially see all these currencies go back up into a bullish signal, and the US dollar head into a bearish signal. So just be aware we are at a very critical stage. If you start clicking through those currencies, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's starting to get very interesting there. So you come into looking at today's trading numbers, and we've got those key levels. Now, as I said, I don't think the trend is going to change. Doesn't mean we don't see some breaks on some of these big trend lines. And what we're looking for is we're looking for a breath of fresh air, an impulse to give these things a boost. We've got the assistant governor, RBA assistant governor speaking today. He's been wheeled out a few times to do the dirty work for the governor. So just be aware he could come out and say something stupid, either talking the Aussie up or interest rate perspective up or down. That's one key thing. Now, Canadian retail sales figures. Now, we just had weak wholesale trade figures, which was a real bummer. If we had strong wholesale trade, it comes on the back of strong CPI. Then we get strong retail sales. We get a great trending opportunity in dollar CAD. Now, that's been taken off the table a little bit by the wholesale trade numbers. But the retail sales figures, you'd think with huge, strong CPI numbers, these numbers are going to be strong. So I'm looking for a downside move in dollar CAD. And then you're coming back down to, the big dogs, the FOMC meeting minutes. Okay, these guys are the rulers of the whole financial markets globally. So it's very important what they say. I can't see them changing anything. If anything, they'll stick to their guns, despite Trump criticising them, openly criticising them. There's nothing really to do there. So as we come into trading today, we are at some huge levels, and we have got some major events to focus on, in particular, the FOMC meeting minutes. All right, so just be aware. Now, I'm not looking for... Now, if the Fed did come out and say something a little bit blasé, well, then you would expect the majors to move, but they're not about blasé. They're about consistency and reading the numbers. So the economic numbers have been on par for them. So I would expect trading as per usual. As I said, all these moves here is Trump. Okay, he's criticising the Fed. He's criticising everyone. It's sort of coming back to bite him in the arse a bit. Now, if you come back over here, let's just have a look at the... where the US dollar is. All right. So you can see the market's been a little bit flushed out again. Now we've seen a big drop down here in the dollar index. It's just enough to poke through that support line around 95, sort of 20. It's starting to sort of drift a little bit sideways there now, probably into the FOMC, but that's a bit of a clean out. And we have seen dollar China or the yuan appreciate as well. That's also supported the weak dollar sort of situation. So that's the US dollar drifting off against the yuan. We do have a nice trend line to focus on here. Should we start to see any sort of crazy increases in tariffs on China, you'll see that weaken very quickly. All right, so equity markets, what are they thinking about all of this? This is where you can see that risk on, risk off profile. Once again, it's sort of steady as she goes. 0.25, I'd say that's almost flat. And we're not expecting a huge amount out of the Japanese equities. Nikkei due to open up 100 points up on the futures there. So that's where we are on that front. Now, just coming back, last but not least, is actually really coming back to where the carnage is in the markets. And this is where geopolitical events are terrible to sort of have in the market, because you don't know when they start, you don't know when they finish. Now, Cohen, he's been slammed. Manafort also, the guy that was running his electoral campaign, also hammered. The US authorities, I'm surprised Trump hasn't shut them down already, are really still going after Trump. And it's through the back door. They have, and I think Trump's a little bit correct. There's a bit of a witch hunt going on, because the initial target for these guys was, electoral fraud. They've now got them on tax evasion, dodgy loans and all sorts of stuff. So they have got them into a corner, and there's Manafort down there, guilty on 18 charges. So what they're probably going to do is say, look, you can either go to jail for 10 years or you tell us what Trump was up to. And that's where it's going to get real messy. And this is where a lot of negativity is going to come from, because if they impeach Trump, and it doesn't look like they can at this point, then does that mean everything that Trump's done offshore gets turned around. It's going to be a bit of a cataclysmic event. And that's probably where the US dollar's coming off, as the Trump, once again, foolishly starts to criticise the Fed. And that's where we are, guys. So it's a little bit of an interesting trading day coming up. The geopolitical situation around the market is still dominating. We're seeing that on the major currency pairs, that is for sure. So all we can do at this stage is really keep a close eye on these major long-term levels. As I said, we could potentially see a bit of a change here in the overall trend of some of these pairs. I still think it's a bit of a stretch. One other thing you can be doing is keeping a very close eye on the yen crosses. They are sort of coming back into play as dollar yen sort of, comes back to a sort of range trading sort of situation. At this point, the Aussie's got a really nice sort of uptrend. So is Kiwi yen, Euro yen, and sterling yen. They're all looking pretty rosy. Now, that's pretty much on the back of the US dollar. Okay. And CAD yen sort of sitting, just wallowing away there as oil sort of bangs around 65, 66 bucks. So the yen crosses, they are building up some great sort of formations, some great potential technical trades coming up as well. So make sure you don't turn your attention away from them. So as we go forward into today's trading, we've got we've got the Aussie RBA governor speaking. So the Aussie there is definitely on the radar. We've got Canadian retail sales figures, and then later in the North American session, we've got the FOMC, and that's where all of these major currency pairs will be on high alert. We'll be looking for some sort of change or some forward guidance from the Fed. I think it's business as usual, so I don't see the US dollar weakening on the back of the Fed. If anything, it could potentially strengthen, but as we know, the geopolitical situation is the one thing that we need to keep an eye on, and that's just Trump. Okay, the whole China situation has gone off the radar of late. All right, chaps. Well, that's it from me. Just keep an eye on the MyFX Trading Hub for updates. You can see when the next major event's coming out. Also, don't forget the daily analysis snapshot. We have done a big job on sort of resurrecting that. And keep an eye on the next best trade watch list. There could be a number of trades coming up if we get some sort of bit more direction and a bit of a change in those overall trends. All right, guys, have a good trade day. I'll see you in the trade zone. All the very best.